Getting away from Trump for just a second, you've heard me talk over the past couple of years about this psycho who is the governor of Kansas, the Republican Sam Brownback, and how as soon as he got into office, he slashed and burned the tax structure in Kansas, reduced all taxes everywhere, especially on corporations, practically to zero. But in that process, he destroyed the infrastructure. By that I mean education and arts and so on and so forth in Kansas. His idea was, and it's a bullshit idea. I don't know how many times these guys have to keep reinventing a wheel that has four sides to it. The goddamn thing won't roll, Sam. Reagan found that out. But no, you Republican jackasses have to keep doing it. So the corporations that were supposed to be attracted to Kansas by the deep tax cuts hesitated and then said, no, don't think so, because they could see what was happening in the state. Well, after 5 years of this bullshit, believe it or not, a coalition in that state made up of conservatives, moderate Republicans, and Democrats finally came together and, according to Salon, delivered the major death blow to Brownback's failed supply-side economics experiment. How did they do it? These legislators just voted for the largest tax increase in the history of the state of Kansas in an attempt to repair the incredible damage that this rat bastard had perpetrated against the people in that state. Now, Brownback had vetoed an earlier effort to overturn, I think we mentioned it in one of these podcasts, to overturn his failed tax reform experiment. But that proved impotent after the lawmakers immediately voted to override his veto, and this happened last night. The Senate voted 27-13, the Senate in Kansas, and the State House voted 88-31 to override Brownback's veto. That's according to the Kansas City Star newspaper. Now, both the chambers in Kansas are led by Republicans. And the legislature had already voted to end Kansas' failed trickle-down economics experiment back in February. But the Senate had been unable to get enough votes to override Brownback's veto. But this time, supporters of the bill to raise taxes had 4 votes more than the 2/3 majority needed to override this asshole's veto. And the Kansas City Star reported it this way, quote, "A major vote in the House came from the leading Republican in that chamber, House Speaker Ron Rickman, an Olathe Republican, that's a town, Olathe, near Kansas City, resisted tax increases for much of the 2017 section. But last night, Rickman voted to override the governor's veto. He had not voted for the tax plan when it passed the House Monday night. Immediately after the House adjourned, the House Speaker, Rickman, rushed to his office, shut the door, and didn't answer a question about his vote." Cowardly little prick. I mean, even when the state is going down the tubes, these Republican cowards who finally, after 5 years, realize that their state is going to have to declare bankruptcy, the education system is falling apart, public health in the state is falling apart, infrastructure is just a word in the dictionary right now in Kansas. Everything is going to hell because of what Brownback did. Look, you dumb shit Republicans, let me clue you in, you half-wits. It takes money to run a municipality or a state or a country. And how do you get the money, you dumb shits? You have to tax people. We all have to contribute. And that contribution is called a tax, you dumb shits. Now there's taxes on individuals, on corporations, on LLCs, on companies, on this and that and the other thing. And if you think you can run your tacky-ass goddamn state on no money, take a look around at what you've done. I mean, how stupid. Jared Kushner was right when he said, oh, Trump's going to keep talking about the birther bullshit because Republicans are so stupid. They'll believe it. Yeah. Now, some background. After Brownback took office in 2011, he and the other Republican swine in that state joined forces to cut the state's already low tax rates even further. And according to Salon, Brownback pursued even more aggressive reforms in the following years, completely eliminating the state income tax for owner-operated businesses. He promised at the time that his so-called experiment that he was perpetrating against the people of Kansas would, his words, quote, act like a shot of adrenaline into the heart of the Kansas economy, end quote. It's more like an air bubble injected into one of the goddamn arteries, you freak. So, in the meantime, the Kansas economy tanked. So, since this right-wing asshole became governor, the growth rate in Kansas has been way below that of the Midwest region and the nation every single year. Kansas now faces projected budget shortfalls nearing $1 billion through 2019. Now, states can't run, they can't do deficit spending. The feds can, but the states can't do it. So more cuts are going to have to come in order, along with the tax increases, to make up for what this evil son of a bitch has done. Brownback, Salon reports, and his fellow Republicans' tax reform failed so catastrophically that even other Republican lawmakers from the region have openly mocked it. Missouri Republican, right next door, State Senator Ryan Silvey mocked Brownback's claim that cutting taxes in Kansas would result in businesses from neighboring states just rushing in. And the Missouri guy said that the real joke is that Kansas's failed tax experiment was crafted and endorsed by the most influential conservatives in the country and closely mirrors President Trump's tax reform plan. In fact, both plans were designed by the same right-wing assholes. So now, as the orange bastard in the White House attempts to pass the same failed plan through a Republican-controlled Congress, Republicans in Kansas are finally willing to admit that the whole thing is a goddamn painful, miserable joke. And in order to correct it, they had to pass the largest tax increase in Kansas history. And they need to fund now a public education system that the Kansas Supreme Court recently ruled is in violation of the Kansas Constitution. These Republican fucks, they don't care who they hurt or to the degree to which the pain is administered. They don't care. The only thing that they have are their goddamn red pencils to cut here and cut there, and then they rush to their little churches and bullshit with their Bibles on Sunday and say, oh, Jesus, I am doing such a good job. Aren't I God? God and Jesus have to be tax-cutting Republicans, right, Reverend? What a bunch of assholes.